More on California's electric car mandate. Let's welcome in former senior staff of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, Mark Morano. Mark, welcome to the show. Good to see you. The Senate voting to block California's mandate for all electric vehicles by 2035. First and foremost, I'm curious how they have the power, so to speak, to do that.
The Senate or California? Who are you referring to?
The Senate.
Power?
Yeah, the U.S. Senate telling California what to do.
Well, California is only allowed to have this waiver based on the Clean Air Act, and she mentioned the Congressional Review Act. It's a complex legal thing. But I was working in the U.S. Senate Environment Public Works Committee during the Bush administration and later the Obama administration, and this would always come up. We've been trying to defeat this California waiver for a long time. We never had the votes. We actually have the votes now, and we actually have a president who wants it. Now, the key why this is so important, it sounds so democratic to say, oh, well, every state should have their own power. Why we're infringing on Governor Newsom. We are not. Governor Newsom never even allowed a single voter in California to have a say in this EV mandate. This was done by executive order, then followed up by the California Air Resources Board, unelected bureaucrats, then picked up by the Biden EPA, and then 11 other states' governors went along with it, again, without a single vote. And this was around the world, the EV mandate. So what they're doing is they're telling California, you can no longer set standards which the automakers are going to have to follow, which up to 40% of the country, when the 11 states in California were going along with this EV mandate, that's 40% of consumers. So what happened was automakers had to kowtow to whatever California wanted to do. It was a bad idea to begin with, and let's hope it withstands these court cases, because ultimately this is about consumer choice. We shouldn't have unelected bureaucrats telling us gas-powered cars are bad and you can never drive them again. As Gavin Newsom basically said, if we allow gas-powered cars, California is going to have smog. He wants to ban the sale of gas-powered cars within less than a decade or so. And he was on course to force that on Californians against their will.
Well, I wonder if California's electrical grid could even handle charging all those electric vehicles. I mean, this is a huge state. But the mandate also isn't practical for people who live in apartment buildings and can't install home chargers, and people who rely on street parking. It seems kind of elitist. And as you mentioned, it could also have a big impact on automakers.
Yes, and automakers are not innocent here. Now you have all these automakers, we're against the EV mandate. Well, they were for it before they were against it. Why were they for all of these mandates? Because they made money. Stellantis took millions of dollars to build alleged plants and then closed them after 6 months, taking taxpayer money. All the automakers supported it when it looked like the government was forcing it on them. Now, of course, they shifted sail. But I think what we're seeing here is this is very cruel. You said poor people, people in apartments, people who don't drive. All of the mandates that Governor Newsom, California, has traditionally done, and beginning with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember, he was the first climate hero governor. By the way, all of his climate hero activity of Arnold Schwarzenegger, 2005, the California climate bill, didn't even go into effect till long after he was in office. And when I say in effect, it literally resulted in California having the highest energy prices, highest electricity prices, and it's become, as Gavin Newsom bragged during COVID, we're home to most of the world's billion. We have more billionaires here than any other state. That's the kind of state that California is, and it pounds poor people, pounds people on fixed income, seniors. They're the ones that have to pay a higher percentage of their energy costs. So this is a huge restoration, decades in the making, to return sanity to U.S. energy policy and no longer allow California to dictate for the rest of us what automakers are going to do and what the standards are going to be.
Well, Mark, I think one of the biggest shocks of this story is that Republicans in the Senate weren't the only ones who voted in favor of blocking California's electric car mandate. Some Democrats voted with Republicans. I mean, when does that ever happen, and why would it happen in this case?
I think it's happening in this case. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens because of the unpopularity of a gas-powered car ban. Remember, this was, as I mentioned, during COVID. This was during the lockdowns no one voted for. This was during the mask mandates no one voted for. The vaccine mandates no one voted for. All of it was imposed, just like the gas-powered car ban was imposed. And by the way, had Donald Trump not been elected, they were going after meat eating. They were going after it through methane restrictions to the Biden EPA. John Kerry had already said we're setting our sights on American agriculture. Bill Gates funding all, of course, the lab-grown meat, buying up farmland. They were going going to do the same thing, but they weren't going to do it as obvious with meat. They weren't going to say, we're going to ban meat. They were going to make it rare and more expensive, in the words of the World Economic Forum. So the reason some Democrats are being forced to vote against this, first of all, it was absolutely bonkers. You have Democrat governors now reversing these mandates in their own states now because they were bonkers to begin with. Rick, they had no chance of ever meeting these targets other than causing one simple thing a la Cuba, which would be driving restrictions and vehicle restrictions. That's all they were trying to do, is reduce the number of vehicles and make it so you couldn't drive, force people into public transit. And that's not very popular.
Well, yeah, Mark, the Senate getting rid of California's ability to set higher standards for vehicle emissions. That means car companies don't have to make California-only compliant vehicles anymore.
Yes.
That, to me, says vehicles might even be less expensive in California now. That true?
Less expensive, more available. The thing is, though, as they mentioned, lawsuits, court cases are ahead, so don't expect anything too fast. The automakers and all industry likes regulatory certainty, and we're still far from that until these court cases are fleshed out.
Well, Mark Morano, I appreciate your insight on this. It was a pleasure. I wish I had more time. Thanks for joining the show.
All right, thank you very much, Rick.